Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Michelle. I hope you're doing well. It's too wet and windy to do a video outside today, so apologies for those who tune in to watch Tilly and Cassie jumping around in the mud. Their sound quality would be just awful. So what we're going to be doing today is comparing what Candice says about the events of the 15th of June around the time Summer disappeared with those of Candice's ex-neighbour, Jordy Sue. She's given an interview to someone called Squall Tit, and she's done her own Facebook videos that have been put out there as well. I've done videos on the Scream. I've also done more recent videos on what Jordy Sue said, so go and check those out as well as this. But we're going to do a direct comparison between what Candice says and what Jordy Sue has said. Before I begin, just quickly say that I'm going to go back to my more standard schedule now that we're just waiting for news about the search for Brian Laundrie. Unless there's any major breaking news, I'm going back to my standard schedule of one video per day. They come out around, I don't have a specific time, but they come out around 3 p.m. UK time, so whatever that is for you, around that time. You know, I do vary it a little bit. So, without further ado, let's do. First of all, I want to refresh your mind on what Candice said to, I think it was Ashley Ainsley Daniels, an interviewer for a local TV station in June when her and Don sat down at their property, and this interview has been analysed, it's been dissected, but this is just to refresh your memory.
I know she didn't walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers, and I said okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV, and I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back, and within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone.
Candice says she was just gone, and she was 2 minutes fixing Grandma's knee brace, presumably in Grandma's camper. Now, she did extend that time to maybe it was 5 minutes, not as long as 10 minutes when she spoke to Chris McDonough. But this whole thing just does not make sense. Now we've got a timeline from Jordy Sue. So I'm going to play you what Jordy Sue said about her and her kids being at their cabin. They were out on the bank. They had problems with survey lines. I'm going to play all of that to give you the context and then listen to what she says about the Scream. Keep in mind that later on in this interview and in her Facebook post herself, she says that she knows the time of the Scream was between 4:30 and 4:42. So there's a 12-minute window. So keep that in mind while you're listening to this context. It's a few minutes long.
And so for weeks, even after the property sale, I mean, there were still people showing up, blah, blah, blah. So it was always something for those few weeks. But like I said, that day was quiet. The kids and I were joking, though, being pretty boisterous and loud. So we were kind of over talking one another. I mean, really happy that day, as I recall. I mean, just like joking about all kinds of different. There was no fan, there was no AC, there was no TV on. The cabin doors and windows were open. And there were a few points in there where noises brought me out. And one particular moment was hearing a door slam just once and we went out, my son and I, and I thought one of the survey lines was down, like it had been cut or something that I had run. And a surveyor that had been with me checked them and made sure rerun some of them. So anyway, my son checks them, and there was a branch on one. So he was cool enough to take that off for me. And then I was like, do you see the tires down there in the parking spot? It looks like they've been moved. And so he went all the way down and, at the very edge of the bank, and was like, no, Mom, they're fine. It doesn't look like they've been moved from earlier whenever we've been out there. Because, like I said, it'd been quite a few times throughout the day. Now, I feel like I'm pretty sure on this. I've asked for help often, but I feel like during this period is when we also heard a car and seen a car, but there was something wrong with it. Because these were the two major things for me that I think back on, was that door slam, and then at a point hearing and seeing a flash of red go up Candice and Dawn's driveway. There was something wrong with it, to the point to where it's not something I would normally, that's how I know that there was something wrong with it, is because on a normal day, I would have never asked him, who was that? But I think I asked because the flash of red was wrong. And in my head, like it had no clear coat to it. The red was more maroon than bright.
So
But
it wasn't like Candice's Subaru red. It wasn't Candice's
like
Subaru red. Nothing like that. It was more of an old color.
I wouldn't say old or decrepit or anything. I would say that it lacked the clear coat shine. And then on top of that, I remember thinking like that wasn't right, because I know their cars. It's like I know that the little white truck, there's a run and go first. The gravel sounds different in the road down there. I know Candice's mom's Suburban, when it goes up, and the back is a little heavier. I can, I know the noises. And then Candice's Subaru does like a 2.5 thing before it gains the traction, and it swaps over to whatever particular traction control that Subaru has. And so to me, it didn't sound right. It also did not complete the curve. Like, there is a way you go back there. So I was like, well, okay, well, maybe it's just where they've had to pull in further back or something. But it didn't even go far enough for that in my head. And I thought that's a little odd, but maybe they're, but when I asked my son, and he goes, it's the neighbors, and he was kind of down into my right, and I was up into his left. So I was a little further up, the foliage kind of started, so I assumed he had a better view, but I think he also assumed because of the red, it was just the neighbors, and that's what he kind of says, is he just assumed. So that's what he told me. And we didn't think anything else about it. We went on back up to the cabin, continued whatever. And then not long after that, I started, and then in between all of these things that day, as we were sitting there, we were joking, laughing, being loud. And what happens is there is this scream, and it just kind of stops us all. It was such a weird and loud and bright sound that it stopped us all cold. And it immediately hit me in the stomach. And we looked at each other, and I was like, what is that? What was it? And the kids immediately go, well, it's the kids. Or it was the kids. And I was like, no, it's not. Because my first thought is, it's the boys. It's summer. Because in my head, I know, because you think, well, kids playing, you think picking on each other, you think something, right? Your thought is not, and Summer's never down that low. You don't hear her like that. I do hear her. You'll hear her when they're all revved up and like, whatever, and things, but not like the boys, because the boys play out further, and, they're a little bit more boisterous and things. But I'm like, that's not the kids, and because my first thought is the boys, not Summer. And so, but my daughter makes it up first, and she gets to the cabin doors first. She sticks her head out. And she's like, yeah, Mom, it's the kids. I can still hear it. And she's like, it's muffled. Those were her words from the get-go, and they remain so. And the way she was still hearing it was like it was muffled, and then she said she could hear like a car or something, and then it was still muffled like it was leaving the road.
Okay, so again, when they heard that scream, it was between 4:30 and 4:42, a 12-minute window. So it gives us a ballpark kind of figure of, you know, to pin everything else upon, I guess. So it was a while before that. Now, she doesn't specify how long before that. They were out on the banking because they were dealing with sewer lines, and her son was checking tyres and whatever. And then they go back into the cabin, and they're in the cabin when they hear the scream. They have to be in the cabin because her daughter goes to the door and says, no, it's just the kids playing. And it was kind of muffled, well, probably muffled because they were moving away or gone in the house or whatever. One of the law enforcement officials, apparently, this is just hearsay, but apparently told Chris McDonough that the boys were playing hide and seek. One of the boys had told one of the law enforcement officials at the evening when Summer disappeared that they were playing hide and seek. So the daughter, Jordy Sue's daughter, maintains it was just kids playing. It's Jordy Sue kind of being hyper vigilant. She says she's hyper vigilant because she has PTSD, and people with PTSD tend to be hyper vigilant. So that sounds right. But the daughter says, no, it's just kids. Jordy Sue says, no, it had to be Summer. She's assuming, it's an assumption. So we don't know that it was Summer screaming. We just don't know. But what concerns me is this vehicle, this red vehicle that goes partway up the driveway. But the son, who's out on the bank with Jordy Sue, who's, I think, closer to it, she said something about, she was in foliage, she was further up the banking, said it was just the neighbours. And Jordy Sue said it was strange because it didn't complete the curve up to the top of the driveway. But I'm sure she said, and I can't remember which interview it was, I'm sure she said she saw the vehicle going right the way up to the basement door. I'm sure she said it. But let's just take this testimony and say, well, it went partly up the driveway. Well, how did it get partly up the driveway? Isn't there a chain? Or did that chain only get put on after Summer disappeared? But also, if it went partly up the driveway and it was there when the scream happened, well, how come no one else saw this vehicle? And how come she doesn't say that she saw this vehicle come back down? If she was so concerned about this vehicle, why didn't she watch it? If she heard a scream and she was really concerned and she knew there was a vehicle up there, why did she not see that vehicle coming down? It just seems really strange. And I'm not doubting that she heard something, and I'm even not doubting that she saw something. But it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Doesn't make sense. It's almost like after the fact, she's become concerned about it. Even though she did tell law enforcement on the evening, she did tell them that she heard what she thought was Summer screaming. So this is not just something that's come out of the blue 3 months later. She does say she told law enforcement this. There's missing parts which make what she says less believable. But let's go back to Candice. A few days ago now, when I made a video about the scream, I said, I'm sure Candice said she was looking for Summer, and that's why she didn't hear the scream. She was inside looking for Summer and the TV was on. And I asked people to find it. I couldn't remember where I'd heard Candice say that. And several people very kindly found it for me. And it's on Crazy Crime Chick's channel. That on the 20th of June, Crazy Crime Chick was contacted by someone who had this recording from Candice about a scream. So it was only when, a few weeks after that, when it came out on YouTube that there'd been a scream, that Crazy Crime Chick released it. So I'm going to play you it. It's only a few seconds. I'm going to play you it. Credit to Crazy Crime Chick for this recording.
So whoever took her had to actually come up into the yard and take her. And I don't understand because, like, my neighbor heard her scream, but I didn't hear her scream because I was in the house with the boys trying to find her. And I guess when my neighbor heard her scream, I was actually in the house and the TV was going, so I didn't even hear the scream.
All right, so let's dissect the timeline. Now, if we take that final video and photo that were taken at 3:09, roughly 8 and 9 minutes away from home, it means that they got home around 20 past 3, maybe half past 3 if there was traffic. And the scream happened about an hour later, maybe just over an hour later. So in that hour, what were they doing? Now, they were planting flowers. Now, they didn't plant a lot of flowers. They planted some cacti, some little succulent plants. And later it came out, Dawn said this, that she'd done some laundry. So an hour passed by, right? And then she had to go and fix Grandma's knee brace. So we're saying that Grandma's knee brace needed to be fixed. Let's call it 4:30, because that's when Summer went into the house. Now, while this was all going on, a red vehicle, had made it partway up the driveway without being seen or heard, even though they must have been outside, because they were planting flowers. Like, the laundry must have been first. They were planting flowers because then Summer said, I want to go back in the house. So Candice walked her back to the house, to the front door of the house, the main door. So how come no sighting of a vehicle? Well, maybe because he'd only part way up the driveway, and then someone snuck along in the bushes, easily possible, and waited, like some weirdo was waiting in the bushes. And then Summer went in the house, and then 2 minutes later or 5 minutes later, Candice went in. Well, she'd done with Grandma's knee brace. And then she said to the boys, where's Summer? So she's now positioned in the house, let's say 4:30 to 4:42, because Summer had to be in the house and maybe she snuck out the basement door, wanted to go and play on her swing. So that's when the scream happened, because whoever was in this vehicle then took their opportunity to take Summer. And Candice says she was in the house and the TV was on. Well, yeah, the boys were watching TV, they were playing video games. Candice was in the house, didn't hear the scream. So it all happened within a split second. And then it was only at 6 o'clock-ish, Jordy Sue says later, that she then saw Candice coming down, shouting for Summer and crying. So had they really been looking for Summer for over an hour? And again, how come no one saw the vehicle leaving? I mean, it's quite possible that somebody was waiting in the bushes, plenty of hiding places on that property, and spied their chance and grabbed Summer and she screamed and they bungled into a vehicle, and Candice and the boys and Grandma didn't hear it because they were all busy watching TV. Well, what was Grandma doing? She was in her camper. What was she doing? But nobody heard it except for Jordy Sue. And Jordy Sue attributes a noise to Summer being abducted, even though the daughter says it's just kids playing. Maybe the kids went out playing hide and seek. But if the kids were outside playing hide and seek, well, they'd have seen the abduction. So they couldn't have been playing hide and seek. So why did one of them say they were playing hide and seek? Maybe they were playing hide and seek before or after. How come Candice didn't mention them playing hide and seek? So where do we really take this testimony from here? What do we really have to support it? It really doesn't make sense. And the thing that I'm stuck on with this entire thing is, why did no one see the vehicle leaving? If Jordy Sue was so concerned, why did she not see the vehicle leaving? It can't have just vanished into thin air and teleported somewhere away, can it? It had to have left. So how come no one saw it leaving? And that leads me to believe that this actually didn't happen. That yes, there were noises, but it's after the fact that Jordy Sue's attributed this to Summer screaming. And actually it was just kids mucking about. And this vehicle, perhaps as the son said, it was a neighbour's vehicle. I mean, they were looking for a red Toyota Tacoma, weren't they, that had been seen in the area. So where did that information come from? Did that come from Jordy Sue? But was it just somebody still looking at property in the area. We know that the 2 acres, I'll put a map on the screen, the 2 acres from the auction site is just above Jordy Sue's property. It's just north of Jordy Sue's property. You can actually see what appears to be the cabin in the trees. So yeah, if she's kind of high up on the property, she can hear noises. Yeah, absolutely. Sound travels. But again, if she was in the cabin and it's only her that thinks this is Summer screaming, I agree with the daughter that it was kids. And I perhaps agree with the son that this is just a neighbourhood vehicle. Maybe it didn't even go up the driveway because it never came back down. Doesn't make sense. So, let me know what you think in the comments below. I've been Michelle. I hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next video.